where the fangirls got up and ran out of the room. Tears. Giant, what? Makeup running, giant crocodile tears streaming down their faces. And the reason I'm going to do it, in both in and out of character, and bear with me as it sort of gets very timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, because I need to speak both as the fictional character Snape and as my actual self, which is really kind of creepy, I'll be honest with you. I've done Q&A panels as Snape. I've done presentations with zero planning or preparation before. I've really prepared for this. The first time I did a panel on Lily Evans Potter, and it was in MistiCon, Chicago. Yes, MistiCon, Chicago. I showed up for a panel on Lily Evans Potter. I thought this would be great. There's never a panel on Lily Evans Potter. I will go, this would be a good thing. So I went and sat down. The room was about this size, and it was slightly bigger, and packed, wall to wall, just rows of people. 5, 10, 15 minutes went by, and the presenter never showed. So finally, I stood up in the middle of the room and said, I believe I'm qualified to talk about it. And the room lost it, and that's what got me started on this sort of panel track, or this sort of public speaking thing, which, in all honesty, I had never done. Now, for those of you who saw my show last night as a band, let me be really clear on something. When there's music and lights and 2 other people on stage, I can be very focused on the thing that I do. And that's really super easy. Where there isn't a lot of noise and lights and distraction, and nobody's drinking, and you're all very sober and sane in this an even room, and I'm up here by myself without a beautiful drummer, a bassist with a great job. It's just me. And that's a very, very different thing. And it's very personal, and it's very revealing. So here comes my story, and then I'm going to talk about some other things. I'm going to want lots of crowd participation to make this work. I was adopted when I was 2 by my paternal grandparents, which means my father's parents. My parents, my biological parents, were, let's just say they had habits that weren't easily shaken off. And my biological father self-terminated, I think it's the most pleasant way I can say it, when I was 12. And my biological mother and I were disconnected for several years. And then I got reconnected with her when I was 7, but only intermittently for years. My adopted paternal grandparents, who were my mom and dad by all rights, because they raised me from 2. I only say this begrudgingly because I've seen pictures of me before too, when I had really long, curly, strawberry blonde hair. Please don't try to picture it now. I was really cool. And then as soon as they adopted me, they hacked everything off. Try to imagine everything just gone. Try to imagine yourself with really short hair. Oh, all right, thank you. And so it's weird. It's a very clear path that I could have been on, a very clear path that I ended up on. And then I went to grade school, and in grade school, like back when I went into grade school, let's not allude to the fact that I'm older than some of you. It was different back then. There wasn't social media, there wasn't the internet, there weren't all these things. And so bullying was very, very different back then. It was, the one kid and his 2 friends you stay away from. Very much like A Christmas Story. Who here has seen the movie A Christmas Story? You've got this one bully, and he's got one lackey. And that's the kid they all stay away from. And so long as you stay away from that kid, you're fine. And that's sort of the era of, tormented bullying that I grew up with. So it wasn't consistent with what's happening now. There's one chair open, and there's 2 chairs open, and there's a chair over here that you can move. Or you could all just sit on P.'s 2 lap. Whatever makes him uncomfortable is okay with him. I love Ps 2.0, and he knows it. But anyhow, so bullying was very, very different back then, and social media didn't exist. And your networking, I try to explain this to somebody a few years back. Okay, for anybody here who's say like under 20, how many people here are under 25? Okay, imagine this for a moment. Television is 6 channels. 2 of them are public access or PBS, okay? You've got ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, and that's it. That's your television. There is no internet, there are no mobile phones, and your friends are only the people you go to high school with. That's it. And if you want to see them, you get in your mom's car and she drives you to the mall. And that's it. There is no social media. You don't Tumble, you don't tweet, you don't Instagram, you don't Facebook, you don't anything. That's it. And that was the social construct back then. And somewhere, because you're not exposed to all the things that you are now, and somewhere around 12 or 13, I got exposed to MTV, back when MTV actually meant music television. Does anybody here remember actual music television? You were my people. I don't know what it is now, but it's not MTV. So I got exposed to music television, and I discovered English bands with tinted hair and makeup and everything. And I was, at the time, a 12, 13-year-old boy in southern Indiana at that, where kids actually drove tractors to work. So I thought, oh, this is cool. I found Duran Duran and, Spandau Ballet, Culture Club, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, and Ultravox, Duran Duran, all these things. I could just do all this stuff because it's cool in my head and on the TV in England. And I could go to my high school in Indiana and be all right. So they came up with a really cool and clever term for me when I was young. 3 letters, starts with F, ends with ag. Anybody? And cigarette. That's a lot more than 3 letters. I was fortunate that I had a small group of friends who stood by me and who weren't as weird as I was, but didn't judge me for it. And were kind of supportive. And then the more I got in music, the more they were supportive. Them, not everyone else. And I was told that I shouldn't sing, that I was too skinny or too ugly, or that my voice was awful. And I'm over 40 years now, and I gotta tell you, and I've told this to several people in my life, waiting till you're 20, 30, and 40 years old, excuse me, to work on your self-esteem sucks. Work on your self-esteem the moment you are aware that you have one. The moment that you think you have any value in the world. That's when you secure it, you keep it, and you work on it. I tweeted at some point that self-esteem was like I forget how I worded it. I'm going to paraphrase my own self now. It was like sort of a rock on the beach, and that every day things tried to erode it. So every day you were out there like trying to fortify it. It's this sort of constant struggle for your entire life. And I feel that, honest to God. So high school sucked. It's weird impersonating a professor because I don't like school. I don't like math at all. And there was MistiCon in Florida, and this young girl and I were talking. She's young. She's this old. Her mother is this old. Well, that's really unreasonable because I'm only this old. Her mother's this old, and the child is this old. I'm telling the kid, oh, I hated math. Math sucked. And the woman's looking at me like, stay in school. I'm a professor. Sorry. And I realize I'm kind of all over the board, and please forgive me for having multiple tangents and doing this, because this is the first time I've ever done this. And I booked this panel because I so strongly believe in facilitating equal rights and self-value and doing whatever I can to, I'm pretty sure we can't end bullying, but we can certainly beat the fuck out of it. I'm so sorry. For those of you who are, I'm so sorry. Do not use that word at home. How old are you? 8. I am so sorry. This panel should have come with an NC-17 warning. I will try to buffer that a little bit from here on out. You guys have all heard that. You probably say it on a daily basis, but not around your mom. And if you don't, that's great. I'm skipping right over you and going to Peeves, sorry. I have a little bit of right to poke at Peeves. Peeves knows that I love him, and I think his mom is awesome. I think there's a difference between picking on someone and bullying someone. I think the lines get blurred a lot. And I honestly can't tell you where the line is, but I can tell you this. If it's consistent and it's awful and you go home and it drastically changes how you think about yourself or your life, you're being bullied. If somebody says one small thing and it doesn't fall off of you, then or rather it does fall off of you, then it's whatever. I think everybody gets picked on to some degree or another, but I don't know where the line is. Where's the line?
The line is when you feel uncomfortable. Like you said, when you take it to heart and when it becomes real to you.
Yes.
You cross the line.
Okay.
When somebody makes you feel bad about yourself for doing more.
I'm going to occasionally ask a couple people as well over here for a little input, because there are people in this room who are way more versed in this topic. For now. That could change. I was fortunate enough to see Janina's keynote speech on Friday, and there's a friend of mine who I told one of my friends about just this morning. Her name is Katie Cat. She's beautiful. She's stunning. She's this lovely girl with jet black hair, which is natural, just like mine. No, actually, hers is natural. Mine just says it on the box. And she's stunning. She's slender. She's beautiful. She sings opera, and you hear her, and you're like, what a gorgeous, beautiful, just songbird of a person. And never in a million years would you think this person could be bullied. It's the kind of person that if you saw a movie about them being bullied, you would think in your head, wow, they cast this really gorgeous actress to play somebody who got bullied. You know, instead of like a regular, everyday person. And about a year or so ago, on one of my Snape pages, I asked fans of the fandom and of my persona, I was like, to write me and tell me one or two stories. Either tell me how you were bullied and how you got over it, or tell me how Harry Potter and the universe changed your life. And I got a flood of responses from people as young as 13, 14 years old to people as old as 50 and 60. And knowing something and reading it firsthand is two different things. I think most of us are aware that there are atrocities in the world, that there are violence and crime and hatred, and that bullying exists on many levels. And I think most of us intuitively understand it. But I sat at my computer in my house and I read stories from kids who were bullied at school. I read stories from kids who were bullied at home. I read stories from adults who were bullied at home. I read stories from adults who were bullied at work. Adults, not 15, 18, 20, but 30, 35, 40 plus years old, who went to work and got bullied on a daily basis at their job by coworkers or bosses, or, I'm not talking about being mean to the barista at Starbucks. I'm talking about people who daily get torn down by the people who are in their lives. And it was weird. Because honestly, I thought it was going to be kids writing from school. And I honest to God thought that was going to be it. And it was such a weird, eye-opening moment for me to sit there and read this stuff. And I enjoy being Snape, I really do, and for so many reasons. And I've encouraged friends of mine, especially friends who are socially awkward, to cosplay characters that don't talk. If you're socially awkward, but you really want to go out and have fun, be a mime, or be a Snape, or be You know, some, whatever, I'm not familiar with a lot of anime universes, but be a character who says very, very little. Because and I'm not really socially awkward. I'm now more socially acclimated. It was a very long journey to get here. And it's not over, sadly. And I wish I could tell you that it was. And I know there are people in my life, I won't mention names, who go, holy crap, if you're not there yet, when am I going to get there? You know, because you're like ancient, I think is the word they use. Really, 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 really super holy crap, you old is the phrase they use. And they're like, holy crap, if you're not well yet, what the hell chance do I have? And I told them, don't wait, because waiting was, you know, I didn't know anybody. You know, I went to counseling. This is something very few people know about me. I went to counseling when I was a kid because my family unit wasn't good. And I was adopted by my grandparents, which would indicate that they loved me, theoretically. You know, yes, we will take you from your drug-addicted father and raise you up to be our own. Only, they kind of raised me up to be him again. And they kind of, well, they did. And they would tell stories about me as a kid that weren't my stories. They were his. You know, and it was okay, you know. But it was weird, so they just didn't know any better. And we went to counseling a couple times because I almost ran away from home when I was 13, I think. I'm not asking you because I don't think you guys know. But I almost ran away from home at one point. So we went to family counseling. My father sat on the bench of the counselor's office and told the therapist, "That's the problem." Pointed to me. He's the problem. He's the problem in the house. It's the last time my father went to counseling. He had 2 sessions. Dad went to 1. Told me that I told the counselor I was the problem, and we never went back. It was a really good self-esteem affirming moment for him. Not. And it's consistent.
Thank you. I just didn't want you to give me detention.
I'm not going to give you you know, you can move chairs, get comfortable. Cellini Hell. So I started doing, like I said, I Deathly Hallows 2 premieres. The first time I was ever at a convention with Snape. MistiCon Chicago, I accidentally ended up doing the panel for Lily. MistiCon in Portland. Who here was in MistiCon in Portland? All right, I know you went to one of my panels because and you showed up late for one of my panels. And this one. Nice to know you're consistent. Can you just pull the door too so the cold air stays in here because I'm in robes and nervous most of the first one. Thank you. And plus, you know, I don't want any Death Eaters to walk by, take down notes about Snape's insecurities and go post them on, you know, Voldemort.net or something. See, Snape's funny. I don't know why people think I can't be funny with Snape. So, getting back to Katie Cat, she's this beautiful, attractive, slender songbird of a woman who sings opera with no music, just gets it from a mic, and I'm not going to do it. So for that split second, you thought I might. and this songbird voice comes out. I got to talking to her one day about how I had asked her to write their bullying stories, and she said, "Do you want mine?" And I had, what? Because there's no way you have one, because, you know, by traditional standards, you just attract a slender songbird of a woman. How in God's green earth, and what planet are you bullying? You know, and again, like I said, if you were an actress in a movie, we'd all be like, well, it's a good story, but why do they cast this model to be the bully, to be the bullied victim? You know, even a made-for-TV special. And apparently, when she was young, she had a mole or something in the center of her forehead. She went to a very, very small school. And they all called her like mole face or dot head or something horribly original. And they shoved her into lockers and trash cans. And I can't even believe this because I'm just looking at this beautiful young woman going, how is this a thing? And what made me think of this story actually was your keynote speech and the whole superhero therapy and finding your superpower. And she found her superpower, it was singing. And it turns out the more and more she did it, the better and better she got. And she started getting involved with either the choir, the theater, whatever, that people went, oh my God, you can sing. And then people started kind of becoming her friends, and this sort of like little safety network starts to develop. And the next thing you know, her confidence goes up. She did eventually get the mole removed, and now to look at her, she's just an incredibly confident, self-aware woman who stands in the middle of the stage and just sings. And the whole audience, and I've seen 40, 50, 100, 200 people just sit and listen to, how many people have actually sat and watched live opera? How many people can imagine nothing worse? I appreciate your honesty. You know, it's great. It's not great if you're working merchandise for my band and she sings like 5 performances in the same day in the same room, and after a while you're like, oh my God, I can't imagine.
I haven't experienced that yet.
That was the other merch page. You know, but anyhow, for me, my initial superpower became invisibility. You know, you blend in, you hide, you find, which I nullified my own special ability when I turned 14 and thought, you know, it'd be cool. I shaved the sides of my head and I spiked my hair up and dyed it blonde. Because nothing blends in better than Southern Indiana. Who here knows who Howard Jones is from the 1980s? All right, yeah, that was me. Shaved sides, big blonde, poof thing, bangs in my eyes. Yeah, I know. You're like, it's I thought it was cool at the time.
Were you listening to Flock of Seagulls or something?
I actually have an autograph from Mike School. His autograph says, "What are you doing in Kentucky?" I think he made that face when he wrote it. So yeah, I nullified my own special ability and I stood out. And I had this weird conflict between completely not believing myself and thinking that I was worthless, and wanting to look cool like the people on MTV. So I made my struggle worse. And I gave, I can't believe I didn't think about this until just now. I gave a speech, I gave a presentation in high school when I was in 10th or 11th grade. 11th, because I did that. 11th grade, I gave an English presentation about discrimination and prejudice. And I'd gone for a job at Papa John's. Is it Papa John's Pizza? Everybody knows who that is?
Yeah.
I'd gone for a job at Papa John's. 16-year-old boy to work at Papa John's. The only job I could get as a delivery driver. And I showed up for my interview, dressed fairly nicely. I've always loved suits and ties and shirts and things. So the only thing really unprofessional about my appearance happened from here on. It was this. You know, and I didn't even wear eyeliner back then, you know, because I lived at home and my dad worked at the house. So I went to the interview, and the manager came out, took one look at me, went right back into the back of the restaurant, the Papa John's thing, and the girl, who was probably like a year or two older than me, went, one moment. And she went back, and she came back and she said, well, apparently I'm interviewing you. Because he wouldn't interview me. He refused to interview me because of my hair. And I gave this story when I was 16 years old in English class. The only difference between the prejudice that I went through as a late teenager and the prejudice that minorities went through is that I could change. I could easily rectify my prejudice. I could cut my hair, I could wear regular clothes, I could blend in with everyone else, and I could end my prejudice at any moment. And for some unknown reason, I didn't. And I'm glad. Now, back then, I don't know. But now, glad, because it made me who I am. It took years and years, and I'm not there yet. And for anybody who thinks I am, I'm sorry. I know I look like I know what I'm doing on stage because I got a cool microphone, which I didn't do. And, you know, but it's still an effort. And I want to empower younger people, and all people, really, to start believing in yourself, to find the friends who support you. For lack of a better term, my superpower became my creativity, it became my writing, it became my acting, it became my music. I did the same thing in the band that I'm doing now. I talked about being a rock star or a successful musician since I was 7 years old. And there came a time when I was 18 or 19, I was writing all this music, and I'd tell everybody, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do it. And then there came a time when you have to do it. Otherwise, you're just sitting at home talking about it, which sounds cool, but it isn't doing it. So I finally booked a show, and I went and I played a 2-hour set, which was probably a bad move. I played some songs that I've never played since, and they're awful. But I went and did it, and I'm doing the same thing with this. It's like I want to do this thing. I want to encourage people, and I want to learn more to do. And I've got people I'm going to reach out to long after this convention's over and get more information because I want so much. But I forced myself to do this so that I would quit talking about it and being on my computer going, I've got this clever idea for the course, and I've got this clever idea in my head, and I wanted to make it reality. So I forced myself to do this, to do it. Out of curiosity, how many people have either been bullied, know someone that's been bullied, or have witnessed people being bullied? I'm looking to see, okay, how many people don't fit that description? Might be an easier way. Wow, that's everyone. Is anybody surprised by that?
No.
Is anybody appalled by that?
Yes.
You know, I don't know when this became an epidemic. I don't. It's like it was in the back burner somewhere, and it just crashed on the waves, and we all went one day went. The thing that gets me, and I'm going to reach out to the two of you. I don't understand schools and zero tolerance because they talk about zero tolerance, but the second something happens, they don't know what to do. Saying it sounds awesome, doesn't it? We have a zero tolerance for bullying in the school. And then something happens, they go, well, you know, if your kid was...
Kids will be kids.
Kids will be kids, and you know, well, maybe if your kid tried harder to fit in, I don't think that works either. And I don't think that's what zero tolerance is. Yes?
The research is actually showing that zero tolerance is not working, and it actually makes things worse. There are other programs that schools can do where it is a whole community. You have to have the principal backing you up, you have to have the school board backing you up, you have to have the parents backing you up, and you actually have to have groups of students helping other students, and it has to just be a whole community thing to stop the bullying. And I've seen it where schools, when they get on board and they don't do this zero tolerance and they do this, well, let's help each other and let's stand up to each other. I mean, there was a case, there was a child in the bathroom getting bullied, and other kids had started screaming, bully, bully, and the teachers came running, and it just stopped right then. You know, they were empowering the students to learn how to stick up for each other instead of this zero tolerance thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I was bullied pretty terribly in middle school, and so when I had children, I found a very different school system for them, a school situation for them, and I was lucky to be able to send them to them. They go to a school that doesn't have an anti-bullying policy; it has a peace policy, and the children, it's a completely different model. The children are taught from kindergarten on conflict resolution skills explicitly. And there's no one goes to the principal's office and gets punished. They sit and they talk it out and they work it out. And one of the reasons we need to go there also is that my son has a facial difference. He only has 1 year. So I knew I couldn't just send him to the wolves, as it were.
Yeah.
And no one would dream of bullying someone else in this environment because they're trained from the time they're 5 years old to interact with each other in a completely different way. And it's fabulous. So if anyone would need more information, the director of the school has been doing it for 50 years, and she is a peace educator.
I will talk with you also.
I just needed to change one thing in my story. It wasn't bully, they called out. It was not in my school. Drastic difference, because calling him bully would have been bullying itself.
Yeah, and there's a lot of terminology that's changed from calling people bullies to calling people that, those who bully.
Yeah.
And calling, bully to those who have been bullied. There's a verbiage change that happened a while back. Because once you label a child a bully, you've labeled a child.
Exactly.
Instead of labeling the behavior, you've labeled the individual. I know there's a movement to move away from that, so they address the behavior and not just, I'm going to point randomly at you, but that has nothing to do with you. You're here. But don't. You know, in the most Snape voice I can muster. You hear that? But you know, but yeah, because they don't want to. They want to stick a child with a stigma of, well, this is what you are now. You know, as opposed to addressing the incident, they fear that it creates a thing. Yes.
I would say that sometimes the counseling doesn't really work and it kind of backfires and punishes the person who tried to stop the bullying in the first place.
Yeah,
So, because I remember this one story where I think I was 11. It was someone was bullying one of my friends, and I threw his lunchbox at him to get his attention to try and get him to stop. And so then the teacher came over, brought us both to the office, and I was given a detention for 2 hours after school, and he got off scot-free. The bully got off.
Yeah. How old are you? How are you now?
15,
How old are you when this happened?
like 11 or something.
I mean, well, I'm going to say that throwing a lunchbox at somebody isn't the best course.
It was like one of those like bad.
But you did, in that moment, you did what you thought would disrupt the
Yeah.
event. You know, you took what was is kind of an extreme measure, but you took what you thought would disrupt the event
Yeah.
so that you could instantly save your friend.
Yeah.
And then the end result was you got punished and the person got off.
Yeah,
You know, so what lesson does this teach you?
not to try.
Yeah,
Stop.
and that's the sad thing is a lot of kids learn to not like you said, to not interfere. Yes.
This moment, we go to the same school, in the same school district, and so the no tolerance policy, in my experience, it really backfires a lot with the school because, especially as you get older, it becomes a joke to the students. You hear no tolerance policy, and all the kids are like, oh no tolerance policy. Oh, don't harass me. Oh. So when at the beginning of the school year, we had an assembly for Friends of Rachel. I don't think anyone's heard of that. It's a combine shooting. Really. One of the victims, the first girl that was shot was named Rachel, and there's this big movement that was created on her behalf to help, not specifically to end bullying,